Could you survive a week in ancient Egypt? No, and now you'll find out why. You suddenly open your eyes, not in your familiar room, but on a dusty, sun-drenched street. The air is thick and smells of silt, spices, and something else, unfamiliar and ancient. Around you rise mud brick houses, and people in simple linen clothes walk by, speaking an incomprehensible language. This is not the set of a historical film. This is ancient Egypt, the New Kingdom era, and you have nothing but the clothes on your back. No money, no documents, no knowledge of local customs. Your task is not to build a pyramid or meet the pharaoh. Your task is much simpler and at the same time more difficult. Just survive here for 1 week. Watch the video to the end, and you will learn why the most valuable resource for you will not be gold, but ordinary shade, and what simple household item could save you from starvation. What if I told you that everything you believed about ancient Egypt is not true? Forget about the majestic pharaohs and priests in golden masks. Your first day is a collision with the reality of ordinary people, and it is not at all like the pictures in a textbook. The first thing you will feel is the all-pervading heat and the bright, blinding light. The shade from buildings becomes your main treasure, the only place to catch your breath. You will instinctively seek it out, moving in short bursts from one wall to another. Then you will be confronted with sounds and smells. The cries of merchants, the mooing of cattle, the creaking of carts, and the hubbub of the crowd merge into a single hum. The air is filled with the aromas of freshly baked bread, dried fish, incense from the nearest temple, and the smell of Nile silt.
Fresh dates, sweet as the Nile. Get your dates here.
The people around you will look at you with undisguised curiosity and suspicion. Your strange clothes, confused look, and unfamiliar language instantly reveal you as a stranger. And a stranger in this world is a person without a place, without protection, and without rights. You will quickly realize that the foundation of this society is an order they call Mat. It is not just a law, but cosmic harmony, the proper arrangement of all things.
The scales of Ma'at demand truth. Speak, traveler.
In this world, there is no concept of personal space as we understand it. People live crowded together, everything in plain sight. Any attempt to be alone or hide something will arouse even more suspicion. You will not see gold on the streets. Instead, you will see people engaged in hard labor, porters, craftsmen, farmers. Their faces are weather-beaten and their hands calloused. Your main problem on this first day is not hunger or thirst. Your main problem is complete disorientation and a lack of understanding of the basic rules of survival. You are invisible, but at the same time you are under the scrutiny of everyone.
Marketplace is closed.
You realize that survival here is not a matter of physical strength. It is a matter of social mimicry, the ability to learn quickly and not stand out. I'm very interested to hear your point of view. What do you think would be the biggest challenge for a modern person in their first hours in ancient Egypt?
The river is generous today.
Want to know a secret that will change your perception of ancient beverages? In a world where every careless action can cost you your life, the simplest and at the same time most difficult question is finding water. How you solve it will determine whether you survive to see a second day. The main source of water here is the Great Nile and a network of irrigation canals. However, drinking water directly from them is a sure way to get serious stomach upset. The river water is full of silt and microorganisms to which you have no immunity. You will see Egyptians drawing water from the river, but they use it mainly for domestic purposes, washing, watering, and hygiene. For drinking, they prefer either water from deep, tested wells or water that has been treated. As a stranger, you will most likely not have access. The easiest way to disinfect water is to boil it, but this requires fire and a container. You have neither. Therefore, you will have to look for another more accessible source of safe liquid. And that source is beer. Ancient Egyptian beer was not at all like the modern drink. It was a thick, high-calorie, low-alcohol product. The brewing process involved boiling, which killed most bacteria. In addition, fermentation created an environment that was unfavorable for the growth of many microorganisms. Therefore, beer was much safer than raw water. Moreover, beer was not just a drink, but a staple of the diet and even a form of payment for labor. Construction workers were given several liters of beer a day. It provided energy, quenched thirst, and was relatively safe.
It keeps the stones rising.
Your main task on the second day will be to get beer. You cannot buy it because there is no money and you do not understand the barter system. The only way is to try to get it as payment for some kind of work. The choice between murky canal water and thick, unfamiliar tasting beer is not a choice of preference, but a choice between illness and survival. But once you get your first meal, you will face a new, even more difficult problem. Are you ready to find out why being alone in ancient Egypt is scarier than being hungry? I will reveal the most closely guarded secret of ancient Egypt. In the modern world, your identity is confirmed by your passport, bank account, and social media profile. In ancient Egypt, your identity is your family, your village, your boss, and your patron. You have none of these things, which means that to this society you are nobody. The third day of survival will make you understand the most frightening truth of this world. Physical hardships, heat, hunger, thirst are nothing compared to absolute social isolation. You are outside the system, and that makes you vulnerable. Every Egyptian was part of a complex hierarchical structure. The peasant obeyed the village headman, who obeyed the local official, who obeyed the nomarch, who obeyed the vizier and the pharaoh. This chain ensured order and gave each person their place. You are not part of this chain. No one is responsible for you. If something happens to you, no one will look for you. Any attempt to talk to someone is met with a wall of incomprehension and fear. You don't just speak a different language. You think in different categories. Concepts that are natural to you do not exist here, and vice versa. You cannot simply find a job. To get even the simplest position, someone has to vouch for you. Someone has to say, I know this person, they will work well and not cause any problems. Your main goal becomes not just finding food, but finding a patron. You need to find someone who will agree to take you under their wing. It could be a foreman at a construction site, the owner of a craft workshop, or even a wealthy farmer. To do this, you will have to prove your usefulness in practice. You will try to do any job, even the dirtiest and hardest, in the hope that you will be noticed. You will try to be helpful, efficient, and most importantly, predictable.
I have brought the water. It is fresh from the canal.
The realization that your life and safety are completely dependent on the will of another person will be a difficult psychological test. But this is the only way to survive. Becoming part of the system, even at its lowest level, is your task for the third day. What I am about to show you will change your perception of ancient houses. After spending a few days under the open sky, you will realize that nights in Egypt can be quite cool. Finding shelter becomes your next priority. But where can a person without status or connections find shelter? You will wander through the streets of residential neighborhoods, studying the homes of ordinary Egyptians. They are built from the most accessible material, sun-dried mud bricks made from Nile silt and straw. These houses stand close together, forming a maze of narrow streets. The windows in these houses are small and located high up near the ceiling. This is not to protect against thieves, but to provide relief from the heat. This window arrangement creates natural ventilation and keeps the interior cool. The doors are usually wooden, and often a simple bolt is used instead of a lock. However, entering someone else's house is an unthinkable crime. It is a gross violation of order, for which you will face severe punishment.
Back away from the threshold. This ground is sanctified.
You will notice that most houses have flat roofs. During the day, they heat up in the sun, but in the evening and at night, they become the center of social life. Families dine, socialize, and sleep on the roofs, escaping the stuffiness inside.
Terrible. He was soaked.
For you, a homeless stranger, the roof of someone else's house is off limits. You'll have to look for other options. Maybe you'll find an abandoned, half-ruined building on the outskirts of town. Another option could be a big construction site, like a temple or palace. At night, these places are bustling with activity. The guards and workers who live on site form a whole community.
The gods will surely favor this temple.
If you manage to join a workers' collective, you may be allowed to sleep somewhere in the backyards, under a shed for tools or materials. It will not be the most comfortable place, but it will be relatively safe. Here you will be among people like yourself and will not attract unnecessary attention. How different do you think the psychology of a person for whom the concept of home was not so unshakable was? In the next chapter, you will learn what the working day of an ordinary Egyptian consisted of. Your fifth day in ancient Egypt begins long before dawn. You wake up not to an alarm clock, but to the shouts of the overseers and the general noise of the awakening labor camp. Today, you will fully immerse yourself in the world of physical labor, which was the lot of 90% of the population of this country. You quickly learn that the Egyptians had a 10-day work week. They worked 8 days in a row and then had 2 days off. However, for a temporary worker like you, there is no such thing as a day off. Your work is simple and exhausting. Most likely, you will be assigned to a team that carries water from the Nile to the construction site. You will be given 2 clay jugs suspended from a yoke and shown the path to the river. You will walk this path dozens of times a day, under the scorching sun, along a dusty path, carrying heavy, water-filled vessels on your shoulders. You work side by side with the Egyptians. You don't understand their language, but you quickly learn to understand the language of gestures and commands. Any delay or show of weakness is immediately suppressed by the foreman's. In the middle of the day, a short break is announced. The workers are given their daily ration, a few barley flour cakes and a jug of beer. This simple meal seems to you to be the most delicious in the world, and the warm beer gives you the strength to continue working.
He said bring 2, so I did.
You see different types of work around you. Stone cutters are working on huge blocks of limestone, carpenters are preparing wooden structures, and thousands of people like you are carrying stones, water, and clay. It is a huge, well-coordinated mechanism, and you are just a tiny cog. For this day of hard labor, you have earned the right to food and a place to sleep. You have become part of the system. You are no longer just a vagrant, but a worker. What if I showed you a time machine to the world of ancient cuisine? After an exhausting day of work, dinner awaits you. This meal becomes not just a way to satisfy your hunger, but a real ritual, a reward for the hardships you have endured. But what exactly did ordinary Egyptians eat? As you already know, bread and beer were the staples of their diet. Bread was baked from coarse barley or wheat flour. Due to primitive milling methods, sand often got into the flour, which wore down the teeth of even young people. You are given your share, a few dense, unleavened flatbreads. They are not very tasty, but they are filling. You eat them slowly, chewing thoroughly, knowing that this is your only meal until tomorrow. The second most important food in the diet of ordinary Egyptians was onions and garlic. They were valued not only for their taste, but also for their antiseptic properties. They were believed to give strength and protect against disease. Sometimes workers were given a bunch of onions or a few heads of garlic to supplement their bread. This pungent, sharp taste added variety to their bland diet. You eagerly eat your portion, feeling a surge of strength. Legumes such as lentils and chickpeas were also an important part of the menu. They were boiled in soup or made into a paste. This was the main source of protein for those who could not afford meat. Fish caught in the Nile was more accessible than meat. It was dried, cured, and salted to preserve it for long periods of time. The smell of dried fish was an integral part of any Egyptian settlement. Fruits such as dates and figs were more of a treat than an everyday food. Their sweet taste was not available to everyone. How much do you think diet influences a people's culture and worldview? In the next chapter, we will talk about how the Egyptians viewed hygiene and clothing.
Good today.
Better than yesterday's.
We are lucky for the harvest.
The sixth day of your stay in ancient Egypt makes you pay attention to how people around you look and how they take care of themselves. You are surprised to note that, despite the dust, heat, and hard work, the Egyptians are very clean. Cleanliness was not just a matter of hygiene for them, but part of their religious cult. The main clothing for both men and women is linen. Men wear simple loincloths or skirts called shenti, and women wear straight, form-fitting dresses called kalaziris with 1 or 2 straps. This clothing is ideal for hot climates. It is light, durable, and breathable. You feel uncomfortable in your modern clothes. Synthetic fabrics do not breathe, and you constantly feel uncomfortable. You realize that you urgently need to change into local clothing. After a few days of work, you earn a small wage in the form of an extra flatbread, which you can try to exchange for a simple loincloth. This will make you less noticeable in a crowd and make your life under the scorching sun. Egyptians regularly perform ablutions. You see people going down to the canals or specially designated places by the river in the morning and evening to wash their faces and bodies. Water is a sacred element for them, cleansing not only the body. They use natron, a natural soda mined in the desert, as soap. Mixed with oil, natron cleanses the skin well. Following their example, you will feel incredible relief after washing away the dust and sweat of several days. Both men and women line their eyes with black paint, kohl. This is not only an element of beauty, but also a practical necessity. Black paint protects the eyes from the bright sun and repels insects. Egyptians also generously lubricate their skin and hair with various oils and fats. In a dry climate, this helps protect the skin from drying out and sunburn. Oils are often scented by adding extracts from flowers and herbs. For you, all these procedures are not a luxury, but a necessity. Simple hygiene and changing into local clothing help you not only to survive physically, but also to better integrate into society. You begin to look like one of them. Once you have tidied yourself up, you feel more confident. You are no longer just a frightened stranger, but a person who is learning to live by the rules of this world.
Get back to work, you lazy dog. That block is still
On the 7th day, you witness the resolution of a conflict between 2 workers. They do not fight or yell at each other. Instead, they turn to their overseer.
Quiet, fool. Do you want the lash?
You realize that ancient Egypt had its own system of justice. It was based not on thick codes of law, but on the concept of ma'at, justice and order. The main goal of any trial was to restore the harmony that had been disrupted. There was no formal police force as we understand it. Law enforcement functions were performed by special units subordinate to the local administration or temples. But in everyday life, most disputes were resolved at the local level. If a dispute arose, for example, over the theft of a tool or non-payment of a debt, the parties turned to an authoritative person. In your work collective, it was the overseer. In the village, it could be a council of elders called a kenbet. The trial was simple. The plaintiff and defendant presented their versions of events. Witnesses, if there were any, also gave their testimony. Scribe carefully documented everything that happened. The ability to read and write was the key to power and governance. So scribes were present at all important events, including court proceedings. They were the bureaucrats and lawyers of this world. The decision made by the court was binding. Punishments were aimed at compensating for damages. For example, a thief had to return the stolen goods many times over. You understand that the main thing is not to violate the established order. Even petty theft committed out of hunger will be considered a serious crime. The consequences can be very severe, and there will be no one to stand up for you. This knowledge makes you even more cautious. You try not to get into conflicts, do your job, and be inconspicuous. Survival here requires not only physical endurance, but also impeccable social behavior.
Where do you think you are going with that?
Observing this simple process gives you a deeper understanding of Egyptian society. It is not based on fear, but on a deeply rooted respect for order and hierarchy. And as long as you follow these rules, you are relatively safe. By the end of the week, the hard physical labor and unfamiliar living conditions are taking their toll. You feel generally weak, and your hands are covered in abrasions from working with clay. In our world, you would simply treat them with antiseptic, but here it is much more complicated. Medicine in ancient Egypt was closely intertwined with magic and religion. The Egyptians believed that diseases were caused by evil spirits, the wrath of the gods, or the dead. Therefore, treatment was directed not only at the body, but also at the soul. There were doctors called Sunu. Some of them were highly educated specialists with practical knowledge. They knew how to set dislocations, treat fractures. However, alongside practical methods, magical rituals were also widely used. A doctor could recite a spell over the affected area or give the patient an amulet to ward off evil spirits. For the Egyptians, this was just as important as the medicine itself. Various herbs, minerals, and animal products were used as medicines. Many of them, as we know today, did indeed have healing properties. For example, honey was used as an antiseptic for wounds, and castor oil as a laxative.
The castor oil. Take this measure before you sleep. It will calm the inflammation and purify the blood.
For you, a simple worker, the services of a qualified doctor would have been inaccessible. You would have had to rely on folk remedies and the help of your co-workers. Someone might have advised you to apply a certain plant leaf to the abrasion. Prevention was considered the main way to protect against disease. The Egyptians attached great importance to hygiene, cleanliness of the home, and proper nutrition. They believed that observing the order of Ma'at in everyday life helped to maintain health. You understand that in this world, it is better not to get sick. Any serious injury or infection could be the end of the road for you. Therefore, you try to be as careful as possible, avoiding any risk. You treat your scrapes as best you can, washing them with clean water and trying to keep them clean. You rely on your body's defenses. This is another harsh lesson in survival. Your health is your personal responsibility. Your week in ancient Egypt is coming to an end. Over these 7 days, you have gone from complete despair to adaptation. You have learned to find water and food, to work, to communicate without words, and to observe local customs. On the last day, you see the world around you with different eyes. You begin to notice things you didn't pay attention to before. Most importantly, you notice the omnipresence of religion. The gods here do not live somewhere in the heavens. They are everywhere, in the roar of the Nile, in the heat of the sun, in the rustle of reeds. Every aspect of life, from birth to death, from sowing to harvesting, is controlled by some deity. You see your co-workers performing simple rituals in the morning and evening. They say short prayers to the gods or leave modest offerings of flowers or flatbread at small shrines. It is an integral part of their lives. The huge temples you see in the distance are not just places of worship. They are centers of economy, science, and power. But for ordinary people like you, access to them is closed. This is the world of priests and the pharaoh. Your survival depended largely on not offending anyone's religious sensibilities. Any disrespect for the gods or their images would have been considered sacrilege. You realize that these people's worldview is radically different from yours. They live in a world filled with magic, spirits, and divine powers. It is impossible to fully understand them, but you have learned to respect their beliefs. You did not become rich or famous during this week. You did not perform any feats, but you did the most important thing. You survived. You learned to appreciate simple things: a sip of clean water, a piece of bread, shade at noon, and a safe place to sleep. You realize that a person is capable of adapting to the most incredible conditions. Your journey through time is coming to an end, but the experience you have gained in this harsh and beautiful world will stay with you forever. You are leaving, but a part of ancient Egypt will now always live on in your memory. We have traveled with you along this difficult path of survival in ancient Egypt. We have seen that behind the glitter of golden sarcophagi and the grandeur of the pyramids lay a daily life full of hard work, strict rules, and the amazing ability of people to adapt. This world required not strength, but humility, observation, and respect for the traditions of others. Survival depended not on knowledge of the pharaohs, but on the ability to find one's place in a complex social structure. On the ability to understand that beer is safer than water and shade is more valuable than gold. Which aspect of ancient Egyptian life do you think would be the most difficult challenge for you personally? Suggest topics for future videos that you would like to see on our channel in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on new journeys.